We will start here. As you can see, power drill base.
That's typically the brand is a Dremel, right? But
Yeah,
you can get cheaper versions.
yeah. Like this here, it's like a very very cheap version.
They're not that expensive if you get the cheaper version. You get
Yeah.
them quite cheap, and they're very useful tools with like loads of little attachments for many things,
Yeah.
like polishing stuff and sanding down.
Yeah, and it's also because I'm quite lazy sometimes when it comes to I want to create like a cutout here in the base, and that would just take quite some time because it's rather thick plastic, and it's quite annoying. And you could do that very fast with the drill.
Right. So you could find something at home like a knife and a file or something like that. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't have this tool, it's still possible.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
So as I said, we want to cut out here a shape in that base to actually use also the room in the base to give it a little bit more depth, so we can later on close it with some plastic card and have like a little pool that we can fill with a little bit of gravel and some skulls, and then fill it up later on with some blood to make it really look like a proper chaos base.
So the idea for the base is that you're cutting out the hole. You're going to have some skulls to the side, a nice little pool of it with the blood, and then you have Corvus and Corgus on the base next to it, right?
Yeah, like I want, because he's standing on a pile of skulls with one foot, and I want to just enlarge that skull,
and continue that theme,
continue that a little bit, and to the side I will also add some cork to have later on painted like stone. You can see here with the Corvus, he's also standing. Get that here in focus. So he's also standing on the.
So good together, man.
Yeah.
So good.
So you see that here's we have a piece of rock and skulls. So we want to continue that very same look. And so let's start with our little power tool here. Ta-da!
Awesome. I was about to say, I think something that's worth mentioning is that Ben has been making bases like these for years. So he knows how the machine handles. He's done this many times. I think for people at home, this is your first time doing it. Just remember to be safe.
Yeah.
Remember to be very careful. I mean, it's not like a major piece of machinery, but you could still damage yourself. If you have goggles, use them.
Definitely.
You know, he knows how the plastic will handle it, and you get a feel for it. But just remember to be careful.
Good advice. It's really like that. The one thing is because I've been using the Dremel on like on a very high. It run very high or very fast.
Yep.
So that melted the plastic. So there was not really a lot of bits flying around. So it's more like melted on the drill.
Yeah. Typically they have a speed setting, don't they? You can.
Yeah. So for the next step, we will use some plastic glue to glue these two here together. One thing you have to keep in mind is that you really want in the end to have like one solid base side. You don't want it to look like you've glued something on there. So the plastic glue is good for that because it really melts the plastic, and so it will fuse the two really together. And when you sand it afterwards with sanding paper, you should actually get a very nice finish.
And you could use regular super glue, right? It's just the plastic. If for people that don't know at home, the plastic will actually melt, soften the two plastics together, and you get a really firm bond.
Yeah, you could do it with super glue, but I would really advise you to use plastic glue for that.
Right.
You could also use the Games Workshop plastic glue. Here we're using the one from Revell.
Right.
And the one from Revell usually comes with a very nice fine metal tip, but when you use it for a while, that it always clogs. So we're just using this little piece of wood here to get some fair amount of the glue actually on it.
I see you guys have these little pieces of wood using for a variety of things like mixing paint, and they're really cheap.
Yeah.
Just to have and extremely useful to have.
Yeah, and you can just take a few more when you're getting your coffee in the coffee shop. So, just to visit your local McDonald's.
Maybe some of the napkins as well for wiping off your paint.
Yeah.
You can find materials everywhere.
Painting guerrilla. So just put it on here and press firmly. And you can see the melted black plastic is just squeezing out of it.
But that's not something to worry about because you're going to trim it down and then give it a light sand.
Yeah.
So it'll smooth out.
And just if you have a little bit too much here, just scrape it off. And the nice thing is you can use it a little bit as a putty and fill it here, for example, where you don't have that much.
I was just about to say, Ben was helping me put together one of the Eternals from the box set. And earlier on in the video, you saw him use some PVA glue. He actually, for this one, he said you could do the PVA, then he had, but you can also do this to show me another way. And he just used a tiny bit of the plastic glue as that kind of, it fuses it together and it looks kind of bobbly and a bit distorted. And you think, oh no, we're just a light sanding of some of the fine sandpaper.
Yeah.
Like 600 grade, right, is what you guys typically use?
Yeah, I like 600, and if it's like a very visible, you could like a very visible spot on the miniature, you could also refine it with a 1000er grain.
Right.
But usually the 600 is just fine.
So yeah, so about if you wanted to pick up a pack and you didn't want to buy loads, 600 is pretty much like an average.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it already looks quite bond, but you have to make sure and wait, I guess, around about 20 minutes to make that really set, because when you now in the next step we will cut off the excess here on the side, and yeah, you just have to make sure that it's not ripping apart all the time.
And that's Plasticard, right?
Yeah.
That you've used underneath, and then that's what, like 0.5 mil, 1 mil.
It's like half a mil.
Okay, it's relatively cheap. You can pick it up at most hobby stores.
Yeah, or you could also, because you have that laying around, you could also use like the plastic from the blister.
Right.
That works very good as well. Sometimes it's a bit too glossy, so if you give that a quick sandpaper.
So when you paint it, it's got a surface for you to prime onto, right?
All right, so we'll be back once that here is cured.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, so we have our base here. Everything should be dried and cured by now. Was roughly 15 minutes. So for the next step, to make things a little bit easier for us, we will just use a scissor and just leave like a tiny bit of the white on the edge. Looking over the edge here.
The tiny bit of white, is that so when you sand it down?
Yeah, we will also use the knife or blade to cut it off actually.
Right.
But it's just easier if it's not that much of plastic cut left. Because it's for the blade, sometimes it's a bit hard if you have just big things hanging down here. So we're just using the blade of a knife.
Now do you typically prefer to hold just the blade? Is this like a specific technique, or perhaps did you have an argument with the handle?
Somehow the handle is, we just simply couldn't find the handle in the studio. So but for a work like that, it's quite good to have, because this rather long blade, and it's quite nice to have that control directly on the surface, but you got to be extra careful.
Yeah, again, it's just coming back to the being careful thing. I actually have the same thing at home. I've got some of the blades, but I've taken some tape and I've wrapped it around the actual base of where the blade is, so it's something slightly more substantial to hold in the hand. So it's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more sturdy, but you find you can get a bit more freedom to move the blade.
Yeah. The nice thing about if you have such a long blade here, that you can really pull it in the same angle over the black, because it's not really straight, it's a bit like that. So it's important to have not like just a straight cut, but follow the form of the original base.
Right.
So yeah, I think because I don't really want to show all that on cam, we can just make a cut here, and I'll just continue like that. Just be very careful and
take your time. Don't rush.
yeah, take your time. And after that, we'll be back for the part where we show you how to actually sand it down. All right, so you can see I've trimmed the sides. One thing that is quite a nice little trick is actually to take the blade and pull it really over the whole thing, and scrape here over the side to get any of these larger bits still like scraped off. And you can actually see to the side is already looking pretty good. But we will now take a bit of either sanding paper, or here in this case it's a little sanding sponge. I don't actually know where we got that from, but it's pretty good. I think it's from Matti's Special Reserve.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say it's. I haven't looked for it yet, but I'll see if I'll get on the computer and see if I can find where you can get that from. It's really good stuff to use. With the sandpaper, you'd have to have it like maybe wrapped around a piece of wood or something,
Yeah, this is very convenient. If you find any gaps at this stage, it's quite good to just fill them with a bit of the plastic glue. Wait a second and then sand it again. Not a second, but 20 minutes maybe, and then sand it over again. Because later on, when you fill it, all these little gaps are quite annoying. And it's when you already work on that piece here to fill those, it's not really nice.
Something else as well, coming back to the safety, is always try and work in like a well ventilated area. So like Ben's sanding this stuff down now, and so with the stuff he's using, not so much. These plastics are actually not so bad, but with some plastics, they can have quite harmful resin.
Yeah.
So it's a really good idea to, I mean, if possible, when doing something like this, have like the mask, the filters,
dust mask.
But absolutely, like have the window open and make sure there's a breeze coming through, so you're not stuck in with the cloud of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's nice and flush. So
So yeah, you can actually feel quite good if there's everything all right on the side here. That feels good. And I think it should be really hardly visible once it's primed. And it's important to be very neat when you do bases for, like, especially for showcase, because people will just, no matter how much attention you put on the top of the base, but if that side is sloppy, it will always also ruin the paint job somehow, because it just destroys the illusion. So just having a simple, clean cut is an important thing.
And you would have put so many hours into a figure, right? To then ruin that effect with just like something that you're at the end and think, oh, I just want to get this video, you know.
Yeah, even in some competitions, like back in the days in Games Days, they said they're actually not judging bases, but it's something that you cannot avoid because you see it,
Right.
and it's just that first impression, and you think,
Yeah.
it's not perfect. So these little things can really help to make also your paint shop stand out on a competition if you pay attention to these little things.
Also, something you said as well about we were talking off camera about paintworks and about contrast. And you were saying that if you are going into the showcase level and painting something for a competition, typically the judges, they do like the first cut and they walk past and they see like the first bit that go into the next round and then they scrutinize them a bit more. So typically, but not always, having something that's very high contrast and really stands out is something that will catch the judge's eye.
Yeah.
And really helps you get into that next round.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I got a present from yellow one from Kirill Kanaev, and it's a miniature, a small goblin, and
the one that you
the one I showed you.
Yeah, oh, that's nice.
And it was funny when I got it. I was like, oh, that's so amazing, and I put it in my showcase full of my figures, and just because the contrast was right on spot, all my other figures like. It was like a Ben Mile. It was like, oh, they're terrible. look at the goblin, and it's so important. And that was one of the click moments where you're like, contrast. It's all about contrast. So keep an eye on your contrast and also on little elements like that. It all needs to be like a perfect picture in the end. Also, being neat here is quite important when you want to do like a water base with resin in there, because that's actually quite a good little starting point for also water bases. And if that here is completely sealed with a plastic glue, you won't have any resin leaking out.
Would you recommend maybe taking some water and filling it into that base just to check if anything leaks out so you know it would be airtight?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, I think here, because I checked that quite. I was quite paranoid with checking that there are no holes. Also, we will still work with sand, super glue, cork in there, so we will make sure to really seal things up.
Awesome.
All right, so let me just clean my workspace here a bit, and we'll be back for the cork.
Cool.
All right, so here we are with our nicely sanded base and a somewhat clean table. You can see pieces of cork flying around. I'm using just a piece of I think it's wall cork that you can actually put on your wall. So we got that in a hardware store.
That's a really good tip, because I've seen videos on painters using this stuff, but I think where do you get it from?
Yeah, and the nice thing is they come in different sizes and different heights.
Yeah.
And this one here is just perfect because it matches the height of the base size.
Right.
So it's also good if you want to do like the insert base where you height the unit bases, and you really do that with the cork really nicely.
Oh, and is that the stuff that you used on the basing DVD?
Yeah. Exactly. So you can see here I've just put some of the little cork things to the side, just to get a little bit texture and also to have something that fills actually some of the depth here. And we have to take our figure Corgus here and see where we place him, and just see that we need some chunks of cork that we place directly under his feet.
A lot of people actually some people really prefer this actual stage to the painting part. It's that kind of building process of setting the dynamic feel of the miniature. So it's really, for me as well, it's like a fun moment to actually sit and take the time positioning the rocks where you feel they will look good, and what's the good aesthetics, what's pleasing to the eye.
Yeah. We talked about that off camera. I was putting the little bits in there, just pushing them around to see if it looks good. Just rip little pieces out, and you can see it's a little bit larger here to one side. So make sure that this side is actually here on the floor.
Because you get some nice texture with the cork, but if it's too uniform, you know what I mean. You wouldn't have like paving slabs in the base that you're creating, right?
No, not really. So and then you position them how you would like them, and we will still fill that with a little bit of gravel and also a lot of skulls in there. So we don't want to put too much cork actually in there. So I think that is already okay. So we have to now remove the figure carefully from here, and because I have some blue tack left under the figure, it's sometimes a bit tricky.
Oh,
okay. That one good.
Okay, again also when using like these things like the glues, ventilated area, because they can be quite strong.
And for this step, use thin super glue because that will really soak nicely into the cork. And then just put it here next to the cork.
It's a good tip actually, because now you've got the everything set in place. You don't want to move it, right? You just straight on top, and it'll set. And this is regular super glue, not the plastic stuff. Right?
Yeah, plastic stuff would not really cure with the cork, and it would melt actually the plastic a little bit too much.
Right. So like when you're putting together your figures, say if you have metal ones, you wouldn't want to use plastic. You want to use regular super glue.
Yeah. And by also putting some super glue on top of the cork, you make sure that it actually gets really nice, hard, a bit rock-like, and it's easier also to pin your figure in that.
Ben's actually helping me with some bases for another project, and he got me to use the same stuff, and it really does. It's nice, especially the tip about having that you can fix your figure into it.
Yeah.
Because the cork could be a bit soft, and when you drill into it, bits could go everywhere, and this. So if you make the base and you've got this wonderful paint job on it, and it looks really cool, and then you drill into it, and then you've just got bits of cork flying everywhere.
Yeah. Also, it's just a lot more durable actually if you just drill in here and pin in there. It's just a lot more stable actually.
And what are you using here?
This is some super glue activator. It's super glue accelerator.
Oh, made in the UK. So this is like the best stuff.
Sure it is. So that will make the super glue just bond off immediately, and it's quite good. Actually, it's not very, very healthy, so make sure you use it in a ventilated area. But you can see this here is now already set, and you could actually also go ahead and continue working, and without having the risk of ruining your tool or your brush.
Right. And there are different with the activator. I've seen like on the again coming back to the base DVD, used spray, right?
Yeah.
You have the spray stuff. So there are different types out there.
Yeah, you can have a pump pump tip for this one as well.
And again, it's not essential though. It's just because Ben's here and he's doing the videos for you guys, and to speed up the process. Basically, you could still just put the super glue in and just go away, have a cup of tea, which as an Englishman I highly recommend, and then come back and crack on.
Yeah, really nice. So for the next step, I'm sure all of you people out there have a lot of skulls in their bits box, because
who doesn't love skulls?
Yeah, skulls. There are skulls all over the place. Here in the studio, we decided to just go for a nice set of skulls that from tabletop art. It's really cool because you have these hollow ones.
Oh, those are nice.
Little different, a small variety of skulls. And
that could be cool for a diorama if you got like some miniature candles.
Yeah,
sticking out
or
the top,
or
maybe.
even something like having wine in there for like
that's really good. Like holding it in the hand. That's really cool. I like that.
And yeah, I think it's nice because they add quite a nice filigree aspect to the whole base. But they're a little bit smaller than the Games Workshop skulls, so we will also use a set with a little bit larger ones, actually for a different scale. Just grab them. So we also have these here, and they're actually a bit bigger than.
Remember, I was telling about the camera, sorry, because of the bag with the reflection.
So these here,
Yep.
they're quite a bit bigger, but I think it's also nice to have like ogre-like skulls, because if you see them here, they're bigger than those, but actually not so far off, and those here
Right.
are smaller. So we will go for a combination of the two.
Yeah, you can opt for different creatures. The other skulls, do you remember what make they were?
They were also from Tabletop Art.
They're also tabletop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will also just continue working with the thin super glue. One thing that is important is that you wait a minute till the super glue accelerator evaporated totally, because otherwise that would just bond off immediately when you put on the super glue now.
Okay. Because it is quite aggressive, that activator stuff, right?
Yeah. So also be very careful when you actually use it on a painted model, because sometimes it fogs out and you have like the white stain on the surface. So I will now just try to fill up the gaps here with skulls.
Are you somewhat disappointed you didn't get to use the base that Michael originally got?
Yeah, the guys went to Battlefield Berlin to get skulls and basing material for me.
And just very quickly, I could say that I am no way associated with Battlefield Berlin, but it is pretty much one of the best hobby stores I've ever been to, man. Everything is in there. Any company and companies you've never even heard of.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's really cool because they have also like a lot of figures on stock that you would hardly find in any other miniature shop. But they went to buy me base with skulls, and
Oh, you have it there? Oh, awesome.
they came back with that thing. It's like, oh, you want to paint skulls? And I was like, yeah.
Michael just thought he then could blend every single one individually.
Yeah, like, round highlights for each and every single one of them. So no, we decided to go for
Well,
slightly.
But Ben decided we really wanted him to paint that base. We were interested in that video.
Slightly smaller base. And I will also just try to get some of the top round element of the skull to make it look as if it would be like a little bit more sunken into the ground.
Right, of course. So it looks as if there's a few of them all built up down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you got where this is going. So I will just continue with filling that thing with the skulls, and we're back once that is done, and we'll apply the sand and gravel.
I think it's worth mentioning that when you're going to carry on off camera now, but when you're actually doing it at home, not to go overboard with the skulls. Don't just like fill up all the rest of the white areas with stuff. I mean, you could do,
you could do that.
You could do.
Yeah, depending on what look you're actually aiming for.
But Ben's going to be adding some cool like water effect type creepy spooky stuff going on. I'll let him explain that one. But so to have it slightly more randomly placed, is going to look a bit more attractive. And also, whilst you're doing this, maybe you could make up a fun game of naming the skulls. My personal favourite sitting here is Bonesy. But if you have any cool names, maybe put them in the comments. Awesome.
All right. See you with loads of skulls. Okay, so welcome to the seance. No, I want to show you a nice little trick to create small bones like that here.
These are awesome.
Yeah, it's very nice because
so
you can get ultra filigree small bones, and you don't even need to spend a single cent for that, because we will do it. We will create them from a piece of spare sprue from one of the other projects, and most of us have tons of that laying around at their place. So we will start with that, but make sure you do that in a well-ventilated area. Plus, wear a mask, or even do it on the outside.
And again, it's fire. Be careful if you're a bit younger.
Yeah. So we're just taking the sprue and we'll heat it up a bit in the middle here. And you will feel one point where you can actually start to. Oops. Okay.
And I was about to say, it's important to remember that this it can be a little fiddly, and like the first times you try it, it won't always work.
Yeah.
You know, it's just. It is what it is. I mean, I think we all have bits of sprue kicking about the place. You get a feel for it.
It might not actually work with a candle.
Maybe if you tried waving it slightly side to side. Oh no! Wait, there you go. Look at me trying to tell Ben Comets how to make tiny bones.
Okay, so right, so you just pull it a bit till you have like a finer string, and you see once it's cooled off, it's like plastic again. So then take a knife and cut it. So you got that little piece of plastic. And now you're just trying to melt the very top so it starts to crumble a bit, and you get that bone-like end. And you wait a minute until it's really not hot anymore. You can turn it around. Cut it off, and from the other side.
Something as well. I mean, Ben's like super macho man, so he's got fingers of steel. It might be an idea to use some tweezers.
Yeah.
When you get close to the flame.
Good point. You still need to get like a good grip on the material.
Right.
And the nice thing is you can. Let me just do that and say it when I have my mask off.
Those are really cool, man. I love this trick.
And yes, you can see you can actually vary quite easily and with the diameter of the bones. and create like a very nice natural mix of sizes. I think these here will be pretty much enough for our base, and yeah, it's also nice if you have these on like a Skaven banner or something. Just hang them and
Right.
like a voodoo chain.
Yeah, that's cool. I was about to say as well. It's the sort of thing that say you maybe wanted to take a break from painting,
Yeah.
and you could just sit at your desk with some music or whatever's in the background and just maybe make a few and have them ready in your bits box, ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think also it's really cool how you've just taken like a bit of plastic sprue and you've made something like that. I think it's to show that you can make basing stuff out of a lot of things that you wouldn't normally think of, just to try and be a bit more creative.
Yeah, plus I think it's, you can easily, if you do that for half an hour, you can easily have like a small cup full of bones.
Yeah.
And if you would buy them, you would easily pay like €5 for like a mixed set with little bones. So this is like a very, very nice way to create also your own material, and you can decide how fine and small you want them to be.
Right.
You can make extremely small ones, and just.
I mean, if anyone out there actually does this and maybe builds a skeleton out of the bones, we would absolutely love to see those pictures.
I would love to see how you make the rib cage.
Right.
All right.
But of course, you've got the skulls there you can put on top.
Yeah. So we will combine these when with the sand and just fill them here in the holes. Okay, so we have our little bones here to the side, a little bit of sand mixed with a bit of larger gravel, and we will use super glue to just fill up the white gaps in the middle here. And we're still using the thin super glue that will just flow nicely into the crevices.
Now you've got that sand there. Is that a hobby product, or have you just gone out, got some sand, dried it out?
Actually, this here is a mixture of different sands that we had laying around in the studio. So, I think there's some gravel in there from the old Games Workshop sand that you get with the basing kit. But yeah, it's a nice source for sand is also bird sand, because you have these nice little chunks in there. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that actually sand, you can find a whole lot of different sands. So just pick some that fit to your project. For example, if you want to be building like a peaceful riverbed or a Zen garden, you would look for rounder pebbles, like smaller ones. And if you want to do dust, you would go for something like baking soda, actually, to get like a very, very fine sand grain on there.
Right.
So here we will just use our mix. Let me just. Okay, just pull it to the side and get rid of some of the big ones.
You did seem to have an uncanny ability there. In the UK, you can get. I picked up from a DIY store. It's called Sharp Sand, and it's essentially the same size sand as that, and it has like random larger chunks in it as well. And it was so cheap. I mean, it was like £4 for this huge bag. And like even if I based every miniature that Michael has in that collection room, I would still have loads left over. So I think it's like you were saying to go to a pet store.
Yeah.
Like they have bits of flowers, for the inside of fish tanks.
Yeah.
So places like that, you can pick up stuff that you may not necessarily, you don't have to go to like a hobby store. There are other places out there to get stuff like the pet store, like an art supply store. You might find some stuff.
Yeah. I try to keep my eyes open everywhere I go. So, especially in these hobby shops where you can buy silk paint and stuff like that, you can find really cool material. Okay, I have to make sure that I don't have like any sand or super glue on that very top, because we have to glue our figure there and we don't want any like texture on there. I think that's okay so far for the gravel.
And you want that light texture because you're filling it with some water stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm doing the black and white foundation over it.
Okay.
So I will have like all these things will just give us a little bit more texture.
So just very quickly, if you've not heard of that before, when Ben says black and white foundation, it's referring to what a lot of people call zenithal lighting. Maybe do you want to talk a bit about that, Ben?
Yeah, you do the first thick load of thick layer of black foundation underneath. I use Games Workshop spray paint for that, and then you after it's dry, you take white spray paint. Also in my case, a Games Workshop primer, and just give it a coat from the top or slightly to the side, depending on your light source, with a light spray paint, and that will leave like only in the raised areas from the direction where you actually hit the figure, will give you a nice first light on there. And after that, we will continue with washes, and we will just use that black and white foundation to already get our first highlight on there.
Cool.
All right. So I think I will just glue in the other bones, and after that we should be ready to smooth out this edge here and these with some milliput.
Okay. Will you would you be gluing some sand around like the top lip of the black base at all, or you will keep that smooth, or work it with the milliput?
I have to see how the texture looks after I've done the milliput part.
Okay.
Maybe we can also get a nice texture in the milliput itself. So we have to decide how we do that in the end. So I've prepared a little bit of milliput here. Milliput is a 2-component putty that you have to mix in equal amounts. So just make a small bowl of each, because you can judge more easily when you have like small balls of the material to actually check whether it's the same amount. And then you just mix it, and we're using Milliput Standard. I prefer that a lot more than actually the Milliput Superfine. First I thought, okay, let's go for the Superfine, but it's really not that much finer. I think it even dries out a bit more crumbly. So I prefer working with this one. I will just take a sculpting tool. Make sure you wet your tool with some water, so because at the beginning Milliput is quite sticky. And the nice thing, actually, it's you can dilute it with water quite a bit and create like a clay-like consistency.
When you did the PVA glue on the Corvus Cool gap, you could use Milliput, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Milliput is actually quite nice also to fill gaps like that. It
sands down very fine. It was more a question of time with the glue, right?
Yeah, it was just like also to show you guys that you could actually do that with PVA glue.
Because people would normally think green stuff or Milliput.
Yeah, and it's just just saves you some time.
Something else you can do with Milliput is, say you have like that ball there on the square, you can push a little dent in the top and fill it with a drop of water, And then if you've got like a rough surface on like a really nice metal figure, you can brush like the thin liquid of the milliput, let it dry, and then sand it, and you get a really nice smooth surface.
The milliput juice.
Milliput juice, that's it.
So I tried to press it around the top here, and the nice thing is, you see it leaves like, if you apply enough pressure, it like cracks up here a little like that, and that I think will give like a very natural sharp edge later on. So here I just applied a larger amount to actually get a nice transition between the cork here and the base side. Just make sure you keep a nice clean edge to the outside or to the border of the base.
Is that because it just saves you time later on, that you don't then have to clean it up and resand it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the nice thing is, it also looks quite nice because the texture just ends here on the outer side of the base.
Once it's dry, will you put glue on it to give it like a firmer bond, or does the milliput in nature is it quite sticky and will just stay like that?
Really sticky, so you should have no problem at all just leaving it like that.
Now the tool that you're using to smear it down, you can pick these up from hobby stores?
Yeah. You can find them actually in various stores. You can also find them on Amazon, like dental tools.
Okay.
So actually it's not really important here for a work like that. What kind of tool you use. This here is just a flat one. We could also do that with the blade of our knife.
Sure.
And I thought it's actually better to do it with that, because you just have a better grip to it.
It's like a little more professional.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more professional. Like all the kids sitting at home with just a blade in the finger, cutting themselves, smearing them with the toxic milliput. Yeah, one thing to mention about the milliput, it's not really the healthiest thing. Same as green stuff. Actually, it's better to when you mix it to use gloves. Some people get like quite strong allergic reactions to that.
Which of course you did when you mixed yours, but.
No, I just made sure to wash my hands immediately afterwards. But yeah, it's actually it's better to wear gloves. Michael actually developed quite a serious milliput allergy, so he can sing a song about that.
What are you doing there, Ben? You're adding milliput into the middle.
Yeah, I'm just adding a little bit of milliput here to get like the same surface on the rock than I have on the outside.
Right.
Otherwise, that might just look a little bit too much like cork.
Because I remember you mentioned not to put things like sand or texture onto the bit where the model is going to be, and then here you are putting some
very very flat when you see it like that.
Sure.
See, it won't really make a difference. Just the parts that we might see, it's good to have them in the same texture.
Awesome. Now, are there ways to speed up the drying time?
Yeah, you could actually. For if you do larger elements or fill things with milliput, you could put it in the oven to make it cure faster. The thing is, it will not be 100% as smooth, especially if you're going too high in temperature.
Right.
It will get like a little interesting, but it will get a little texture from it.
And also putting things in the oven, you've got like a lovely figure. Don't put resin in the oven, guys.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, maybe not said, but don't if you saw this and thought, oh, I might fill my Stormcast with some Milliput and then bake it in the oven.
Yeah. Also with the base here, that would not really work.
So really, it's just a case of just let it dry, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's nice to actually do the Milliput, for example, in the evening, and then come back in the next morning. Right. Then you're sure it's cured 100%. While the Milliput is still wet, you can also add like little like lines to get like a little bit of a crack in there, and just to get it in the right depth.
And because in the base you did for the Stormcast, it was from the basing DVD, right?
Yeah.
And you actually paint lines onto there. You show how to do that with, but I suppose this way you've got the control. You can actually engrave them and make that a touch easier.
Yeah, I think the combination is actually quite nice. Fine painted on some deeper scratch ins. We'll just keep them like that now. Let it dry and just refine them a bit once it's dry to flick off a little bit of the Milliput to the sides to make it look a little bit sharper, because now they would end up being quite dodgy, right? Look quite soft. All right, so I said earlier we will just let that dry now and come back with the primed base.
Just quickly, typically how long would that take before you would then start to paint it? I mean, I know you just recommended to leave it overnight, but let's say someone had maybe started this in the morning and wanted to come back to it later on. How long would you give it before you went at it?
I think 2 hours. 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah. Okay. It's good to just leave the rest of the Milliput aside to check on that piece if it's cured.
Right.
So you can just see, all right, this was the bit.
So you don't know if you've got something that may be finer and you don't want to push on it.
To check if it's okay. So before we prime the base, we will just refine these scratches here, and then actually we're already ready for painting. And I think it's funny because this base now with the Milliput has a very nice natural border to the side.
We've mentioned about changing the skin of the dog to like a lurid green.
Yeah,
that could be its home world, and like in his home.
Yeah, so
it's good. It's a really cool base, dude.
Little skull pool. All right, so we'll be back with the dried Milliput. Right, here we are with the Milliput fully cured, and just quickly before we head over to prime the base outside, we will just take the blade and see these scratches that we've scratched in the wet Milliput. They look a little bit soft, so we just take a sharp blade and flick off the sides and scratch a bit on the surface so it gets like nice sharp edges here. Even if you get like larger chunks out, that is not really bad. Like for example here, they flicked one thing off, but it's quite nice because you have that rough edge here.
And that's to give it a more natural look.
Yeah, that's to get like really nice sharp edges. Like
right, you wouldn't have like that. I mean, maybe a little bit of that perfect line, but
yeah, but at least you would not have like a soft edge if it's stone. So where you want those to be like really more carved into the material. And if you have like any fingerprints to the sides or something like that, it's good to scrape it off here in that stage.
When you do the cracks, is it kind of a case of just less is more type deal? You find like little spots and not to go overboard, so it's like a spider's web type effect.
Yeah. Just do larger ones here, and if you decide in the end you need some finer cracks on there, you can also go ahead and paint them. So
like in the
basing
video, right?
Yeah, so you're free to do that in the end. So we will go now and prime the base, and we'll be back with the black and white primed base.
The Zenithal you were talking before, right?
One thing I want to mention is we will put quite a bit of black on there because we want to have the black in all the recesses. So make sure when you prime the base that you don't leave any of the original material color shining through. All right.
So at the same time, not to go like completely overboard hardcore with it, because if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
those
yeah.
tiny pinpoints, you can always use a brush and
Yeah,
a tiny bit of
yeah, yeah.
black just to fill it in.
Yeah, I think we will also we will have to work with the brush, especially in those recesses down here. It's really hard to reach with the spray paint, so we will spray paint it black, then retouch it with some black paint, and then take just some skull white in the can and more from one side spray over the top layer.
And any tips when using the can? Anything at all? I mean, you hear some people like warming it in their hands for like 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
so any particular tips?
I think I wouldn't go too crazy and warm it, or just make sure it's shaken well enough, shaken well enough, and yeah, I would when I'm priming, I'd rather do small spray pumps,
Oh, small bursts.
small bursts, than doing it for too long, because I just have that impression it gets a little bit flatter in the finish. So yeah, but other than that, well, use a well-ventilated area. Go outside. If you have these priming boxes or airbrush boxes, you can work in that. But yeah, make sure.
Sometimes as well with like say if there's like extreme weather outside, you know, if it's like freezing cold,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, I mean obviously depending on what your location is in the world, you work with what you have, but if it's like a day where it's like really, really cold and that's not typical for you, maybe just wait until it's a bit warmer or something, or contrarily extreme heating could affect it.
Or even the garage somewhere, because actually working with the spray paint is, I think, it's not good really under 0 centigrade.
Right.
So because then also sometimes when it's too hot or too cold, you get like a really like a texture on it, because the color kind of dries before it reaches the miniature, so you have like a powder on there. So you really want to avoid that, because you can ruin a lot of money just with one go with a foundation like that.
And it's not like say the paint that I mean it's the same stuff, it's acrylic, but to strip it off can be like some black primers. It's not going to go.
All right, so we'll be back with the prime base.
Awesome.
We here in the studio would really like to thank you guys for your ongoing support in the Patreon campaign. It's really amazing, and you make us paint more and more, and that makes me happy. Thanks a lot.